Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the PHNX Rising Show, brought to you by the DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's #1 sportsbook app. I'm Ramon Chavez, joined by my good friends Owen Evans and taking it to the max, Max Simpson. How you guys doing? I missed you guys.
Yeah, you're lucky. You're lucky that Phoenix Rising didn't win on Saturday, because otherwise I get the feeling you wouldn't have been allowed back, Ramon, you know? It was
Wow.
two wins initially. If they'd have added the third with you
Actually,
absent,
yeah.
then,
Yeah.
maybe for the greater good, of course, for the greater good.
Yeah. I would have happily made that sacrifice if it meant Rising went to the playoffs. So, but yeah, happy to be back. A lot has happened in my absence, I can see and I can tell. But happy to be back with y'all, ready to talk some more Rising. We got some news today, so we're definitely going to touch on that regarding one of the key Rising players of this season. But yeah, lots to talk about. Of course, we're going to talk about that game on Sunday against RGV and what it meant to Rising.
One weekend away with a league that shall not be named, and you completely lose track of days. Remember,
Dude, it's just wild. It's a wild time when you're traveling. You just lose your sense of track and time. So, all right, y'all, let's just jump into it. So Rising were eliminated this past weekend. Owen, you were there, and RGV. I heard it was really humid when you were over there. So, what happened that day? I know it was a must-win game. Aiden Quinn does miss a penalty, unfortunately, in that game as well. But there were some classic defensive mistakes from Rising as well during that game. So describe what happened on this past weekend.
Jonas Fjällberg is what happened ultimately.
Yeah.
He's someone who propelled RGV to a playoff place last year when he came in on loan. Looks like he may be doing it again this year. What we saw was classic Phoenix Rising, in that they give the ball away in pretty dangerous positions and they don't react quickly enough then in that very, very quick transitional moment. Again, because they're giving them away in bad areas. And it comes back to haunt them. Beyond that, of course, look, it's something that came up today when we were chatting with Juan Guerra, Phoenix Rising head coach. He said it wasn't necessarily the team was bad for the whole game. They had good spells, they had good moments, and in their possession, they were fine until they got into the final third. And when they got into the final third, they weren't necessarily being as brave as they should be. They weren't taking on chances perhaps they should have been. And that's where the concern was coming out of that game. But there were still positives to take out of it. So, look, overall, it was a disappointing game, I think. And it was disappointing because there wasn't that excitement in the final third. It didn't feel as though Rising were denied by a bit of bad luck, really. It felt as though they just weren't quite creating enough in there.
Max, your thoughts?
No, I agree with that. I would also say that really Rising was pressed to death, honestly. Their RGV's line was incredibly high and throughout all three levels, offense, midfield, defense, and Rising really just couldn't handle it. They played with if RGV played with Phoenix's urgency, and if it was vice versa, it would have been a much different ballgame. But I told Owen, it's almost like Rising was the team that played on Wednesday because they looked sluggish. They didn't look first to the ball. And RGV, to their credit, they got after it from the opening whistle. Rising was pressed to death, really didn't respond well with a lot of urgency out of the back either. I think there's a time and place to be cool under pressure, but far too often they were too cool under pressure. Gave the ball away cheaply. Ben Lunt was our DraftKings player of the game, king of the game, for good reason. It could have been way worse of a showing. And I do think Rising had some nice moments in transition once they were able to beat that press. But, again, to Owen's point and reiterating what Juan Guerra said, it was not adventurous enough in the final third. And they really had to rely on beating that press regularly. And it just didn't happen.
I think it's also worth noting, one thing to note here, that while Phoenix Rising did end up being eliminated as a result of that game on Saturday, even if they'd won that game, they would have been eliminated on Sunday because of results elsewhere. Pretty much every result that could have gone against Rising went against Rising over the weekend. New Mexico would have been the final straw there. They picked up a draw against San Diego. Classic New Mexico getting a draw, I know. But that would have been the end there, with El Paso getting the win and with Oakland getting the win.
Yeah. So, and this is a hole that we knew that Rising was going to have a tough time digging themselves out of because of the results in the middle of the season and just the way that they were playing. And it just wasn't going to go their way unless they really put in the effort and got a lot of points in the last few games. Just looking at the stats here, so 70% possession for Rising. That's incredible. 640 passes the entire game to 274 from RGV, and I think it just kind of sums up what happened this season. The offensive firepower was not there in the final third. You know, I caught some of the game. I caught some of the highlights as well. And you could just see it. It's the same Rising that we've seen the entire season, where there was one occasion I see Babu making his way through like 1, 2, 3 defenders, but just the final pass or the final shot just wasn't on target. Can't create those dangerous chances to put Rising on top. So hopefully that's addressed over the offseason.
Yeah, and again, that's something that came up today in the press conference. When you've got 70% possession, you can't just have as few serious attempts as they did. If you do that, all that's going to happen is you're going to end up with the result like they did. You know, meaningless possession is not helpful to anybody. You've got to have that end product. You've got to actually threaten with that possession, because otherwise it's just a statistic.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Owen, were you able to speak with Juan or any of the players today? Any immediate availability?
So we didn't hear from any of the players, but we did hear from Juan. They talk inside the camp is that they are approaching this one much like any other game. That there is no fundamental change to the ideology behind how he's going to pick the players. It's all a competition, much as it is every week. We're not going to see a change to, say, put certain players that haven't played out there. And that the atmosphere in the camp was described, at least, as being still very businesslike, even though there isn't going to be a whole lot to play for other than a little bit of pride in front of the home fans on the weekend. One bit actually to note as well in there, James Musa he still remains questionable. We don't know yet if he will be available come the weekend. He, of course, hasn't played since the injury he suffered in the warm-ups against Sacramento. So I have to wait and see on that front.
Max, what do you as a player, you might kind of give up for the season if you know that there's not going to be any playoffs or anything like that. But what do you want to see in this last game? Do you want to see some players get some extra minutes? I for once want to see maybe Lalo Delgado get a start, for once this season to see how he does. So what do you want to see this upcoming game?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm an individual player, right, it's ever since Juan Guerra brought in, we keep on saying it would have been an extremely tough lift to get into playoffs. And that really, he was brought in not just to rescue this season, but also to be the face of this club moving forward. I mean, if I'm a player, that gives me an opportunity to next year is going to be in many ways a blank slate, regardless of who's under contract or who's not, and being able to stake your claim and say, hey, I deserve a spot, not only on this team, but being a contributing member. It really leaves a lot of how you end the season. Now, that's honestly on a positive note, and in a best case scenario, you got to feel for the guys. Like I can say all of that stuff, but realistically, I believe it's going to be pretty darn hard to get up for this game when you realistically don't have anything tangible to play for from a record standpoint. I mean, it's pride, it's having your job security the next season. But other than that, it's really tough to ask the guys. I mean, you can say what you want, but I'm curious how they come out on Saturday.
In Pat Moses' words in the chat, give us Dunn. I want to see Niall Dunn out there, please, please. Even if it's only a cameo off the bench, I want to see Niall Dunn take the field this season. He did last year, of course. He managed to play up in Vegas. He spent a lot of the year out through injury, but he is available. He made the trip up to Sacramento when they were struggling a little bit with some injuries and international duty, all of that at that point. So, hey, he's there. I mean, I wouldn't rule it out.
Yeah.
I will say as well, let's have a look at some of the things in the chat. Is Moose's deal up at the end of this year? I don't believe I have a specific answer on that one that I can give you, unfortunately. Some people... Yeah, I don't know. We know some people, whether they're under contract or not. We know others are a bit vague, a bit more up in the air. We've also lost Max, by the way. Maybe Max's contract just ran out. But look, at the end of the day,
That was weird. Sorry about
I
that.
think I will say is actually, by the way, if anyone's seen the list that's floating around, I think it was on Reddit today. Was there one put up, taken off of Transfer Market? Don't trust it entirely, is what I'll say. And we will go through this list of contracts, I think, later in the week, and we're going to talk specifically about who we want to see stake a final claim that they should return later in the week. So there you go, Michael. But I wouldn't fully trust that list on Reddit because it doesn't quite align, at least with things that I've heard separately. So just wait and see. Patience is the name of the game.
We'll give you
wait for Thursday.
As far as Channing Chaston, we did not see a lot of him this season, whether it was performance-based or injury-based. But, I mean, if he's available, I would like to see him play. You know, we only
He's
saw
injured. He's out. He's out for this. Yeah.
And I'm assuming Ryan Flood as well. So it's tough, you know, because these are guys that I didn't feel like got their fair opportunities this season. Someone that I've advocated for is Carlos Anguiano, a little bit more minutes. We saw that, you know, in the last few games, but in this last game against RGV, he didn't really see any playing time. So it's rough. And I think as a player, you know, thinking of it business wise, you know, you have to understand that this might be the last time you suit up for Phoenix Rising. Is that something that's fair to say, Owain Max?
Yeah. And it makes it an awkward one as well. Look, as a perfect example, there are 3 players on this team who have made over 100 appearances for this club. And we don't really know if all of them are coming back next year. So it's one of those things at this point. You want to be prepared for the fact that it might be a send-off for some players. It will be a send-off for one, at least. We know that. And it will be a send-off for others as well. We know they're ready for difficult decisions. There's going to be a lot to deal with over this off-season. It's not going to be easy. But it's harder when now you go into this final game again, and there are a lot of players here who do mean a fair amount to the fans, and yet we don't really know at this point. Will they be back? Won't they be back? And you can't necessarily give them the send-off that you'd hope to.
Yeah, it's a tough league, man. I mean, especially from the business standpoint, even if you don't know whether this is going to be your last game in a Rising uniform, you're always playing for something. And like I said, I know that whether you're going to be on this club or not next season, you're fighting for that next opportunity either here or somewhere else. I mean, in addition to just individual players, I'm really curious to see this club kind of transition with maybe either a few different formations. And really the thing I'm thinking of is thinking outside of just individual players. If you zoom out, how does Juan Guerra, you know, does he have a backup system when things aren't going well? Does he have a bit more of that, I don't know, that break glass in case of emergency, if we need to do this, if something isn't working? And that's something that I really haven't seen in the last couple games. So I would love to see in this last match, even if it's not with the players that aren't going to necessarily be there next season, experiment with your coaching philosophies and see if you can build on some stuff for next season. And I think the players are more or less going to fall in place. Like, look, this last game is not going to undo any good or bad work. It's not going to make or break any one player's career, but it is the last thing people remember. So, I mean, that is something to play for.
Before we transition here, guys, you know, we'll talk about this more on Thursday, but if you had to pick one, you know, side of the Phoenix lineup that you would want to improve the most heading into next season, would that be the defense, the midfield, or the forwards? What do you think is the number one priority heading into next season?
To me, the real thing that needs fixing right now, I mean, people are saying defense, which is amusing because, you know, I don't think Rising have ever been especially capable defensively. I think this team is struggling to score and struggling to consistently create chances. I don't think that's necessarily a true center forward issue, but you need more chance creators around them. I think that if JJ Williams can be brought back, and he's one of the people we don't believe is under contract for next year, little spoiler for you for Thursday, then personally I would be okay with the idea that him, Greg Hurst, and Richmond Answe as players are fine up top, but they need more chance creators around them. They're going to give them the service that they need.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment. I think it's such a tough one, man, because like there's so many, it's a little bit of everything really needs help. And just because you covered it for sake of argument, I'm going to say kind of that's a twofold. I want to see Lambert play, in my mind, more of his natural position in the midfield. Therefore, we need someone in the defense to kind of shore up his spot. I understand he can do the job back there, but I want to see our players in their best roles to succeed. For me, in my mind, that is him in the midfield. So I want to see what the defense looks like, because I think the midfield had its issues, but I think a lot of them were kind of nullified when he was playing there. So then, to me, when you take out Lambert out of the defense, where he's arguably one of our better defenders as well, you need to shore up that. So to me, it's a defense issue when you're building him from the defense to the midfield.
Chat in the chat there as well, by the way, that the biggest improvement could actually be knowing where they're playing next year.
It might help.
Would be helpful.
All right, y'all. But yeah, we're definitely gonna touch on this a little bit more on Thursday. Who we want back, what needs more improvement. So stay tuned. Make sure to join us on Thursday. All right, y'all. Let's take a quick break. Talk about our friends at Four Peaks. Man, I could go for some Four Peaks, some beer right now. That sounds really good right now. But yeah, if you guys haven't yet, make sure to check out the 8th Street location in Tempe. And Max, I don't know if you went to a tour. I know it was offered to us here at PHNX, but I hear that they're doing these haunted tours now that it's spooky season. Can you tell us a little bit about that if you did go?
You didn't go, Max. See, I went.
Yeah,
I
was
actually.
not able
Who went? Someone went.
I actually
fun
went
spoiler.
To that.
Yeah,
I will say that it was sufficiently scary. No, I'm going to say that Chisten Susel did swing her arm and left a big crack in the side of the plastic glass that I was holding. So.
Sheesh. Okay, there you go. That's a good endorsement, I think.
That's at least a yellow. No, but I also saw Lindsay on our Sun's show. She posted a video of our GM Saul, and oh my gosh, that man got spooked. So, and Saul,
that was just the brewing equipment like rattling a little bit, and that was it. Then he was off. He was done. Like.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, it was a fun time. So if you guys want to go on these haunted tours, you guys can join them at their haunted brewery tours every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday from September 26th to November 2nd. And they do tours starting at 7 and 8:30 p.m. And I believe the tickets are $35, and it gets you the tour, a picture of their pumpkin porter, and a T-shirt. So that's a great deal. Spooky season. Take your girl, take your friends, take your family, and have a great time. Just don't swing. You don't want any issues with that.
He's been off for a couple shows. And he's already talking about taking his girl. Good man.
Oh
we start those rumors back up.
And just remember, guys, you must be 21 years or older to enjoy Four Peaks Brewery. All right, y'all. Pretty big news that dropped right before the show got started today. Luis Manuel Seijas, he will not be coming back next year as far as Phoenix Rising because he is hanging up his boots. He's retiring. He made a statement on Instagram and also on Twitter. So if you guys haven't checked it out, make sure to check that out. But, Owens, you've been covering Rising for a very long time. What does Luis Manuel Seijas mean to Phoenix Rising, and why is this such a huge deal for a huge loss? I mean,
so anytime you have a team like this where you've got some younger players, a variety of other players who are kind of like fringe professional footballers, let's be perfectly honest, okay? That's where a lot of them are. A bad season can be the difference between playing football and not playing football professionally for them. having someone who has played at a much higher level and has a lot of experience at a much higher level to come in to mentor them, to be a leader in the locker room that he's capable of doing is huge. Beyond that, he's also shown, I feel, repeatedly at times this season that he's just willing to get what needs to be done on the field. We've seen him at times where he's the one who seems to read sometimes. The attack is stalling. We've just got to start shooting. And some of those shots have gone in. He's scored a few this season. I feel as though he's proved that he can still do a job at this level. And to me, that's why looking at this, it's disappointing that he won't be coming back. It's disappointing that the club aren't pushing necessarily for him to try and come back. And we've ended up with this decision being made.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the time you need those glue guys, right? Those guys who, like you said, they take players under their wing, and even more so on the pitch. He's someone who, even if you're not mentioning his name often every game, in his position, in a way that's kind of a good thing, right? Like I don't know. He's not going to every day have one of those performances where it's like, wow, but I never really saw him have a string of games that were abysmal or ones that were like he should not be in that position. And for someone, of his age, 36 years old, like that's impressive, right? Like he kept the standard. He was someone who you can rely on. And in this league, especially where, you're playing a lot of games and quality can dip, especially after a bad season, that's someone I never worried about. When he was in the lineup, I never questioned it, honestly.
And that's a really good point, actually, because this has been a season of finger pointing, okay? Mm-hmm. It's been a season where we have consistently had to work out where things are going wrong. And if you aren't someone who's having a finger pointed at you, which I don't think he really has. He's maybe had one or two subpar performances, sure, but subpar, not poor, just subpar. Overall over the season, he hasn't performed like that at all. He's been pretty decent in that squad. Mm-hmm. I'm just disappointed. I really feel as though he could have done a good job for this club for another year. And I know it's hard. It's a hard decision to make, of course, coming to the end of your career. And as you mentioned, he's 36. I'm not expecting him to play every game, but there's still a role for him in this team. And it's a shame that we aren't going to see him in that role next season.
Yeah, I was really surprised when I saw that statement. The quality that he brings, the leadership, the pedigree. He's played in Copa Americas. He's played in Europe. This is a guy who in one of the in interviews that he gave, he said, looking at my metrics, my body's like a 25-year-old. I could keep playing. I'm good. And so I was really surprised. So I don't think this is a performance-based thing. I really don't, I know his family lives here and stuff like that, but maybe that's part of the decision. But if there's any way to bring him back, I would want Seijas to come back, because in some stretches of the season, and Owen, back me up if you agree, he carried this team on his back. He literally got the 3 points for Rising. So for someone like that to just hang up the boots like that, it's kind of anticlimactic. I think he deserves a little bit more. Now, is he going to play 34 games next season? If he did come back, I don't think so. But maybe if he can give you a solid 20, 25, I think that's great. And you still have him in the locker room. You still have him to develop those young guys. It's sad, man. That's a big loss, I think, for next season.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And look, to your point that you made there, if you can find any way to kind of coax him back, Bobby, get the checkbook out. Just do it. Just do it. Get the checkbook out. Bring him back. Because if you can, I don't see an easy route to replacing him as a whole. We've already been through a situation where we've had a player that you're like, I can't replace this player in whole. I'm going to have to replace him by part. And we saw how that went. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to suggest that Luis Seijas is quite as pivotal to this team as Solomon Asante was. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean he's still not got a role that he could very, very easily fill in this team.
Michael in the chat is suggesting assistant position. What do you think?
I'm not so sure. I mean, maybe maybe. But if you were going to do that, you could just have him as a player assistant. Like I don't know.
True.
That would have to be so tough. I would think like you just retire and then you already it's almost like you're too close to the game too soon. Listen, people have done it and
This happened, people here did it.
No, and I wouldn't rule it out, but I guess I don't know, like especially if you still think you have a good motor on you, why I don't know, why give yourself more time or maybe not right immediately. You never know. But I don't know. I would maybe give it a season or two before discussing that. I mean, I think the biggest thing, I know you touched on it a bit, Owen, but like the non-tangibles and what he brings to a locker room, especially in this transition phase, someone who is able to help steady that ship. Gosh, we already know this season's been rocky, and you're talking about next season where if expectations were high this year and you underperformed, you don't even know what the expectations are going to be next year. So having that steadiness holding over, I don't know, it's going to be missed. It really will be.
And it's just something that if as a player, he can walk into any locker room in this league and garner respect just because, this is a guy, as we've said, he's played in the Copa America. He's won the Copa Sudamericana. He's a very, very talented player that featured for a while at one of the biggest clubs in Colombia, is it?
Colombia,
I'm
Belgium,
blanking here.
Brazil.
Yeah, he's played on a lot of places here now. And of course he represented Venezuela on many occasions as well. So look, I'm still just a little bit surprised at this because again, I gather that he's relatively, and him and his family are relatively happy here. I don't know. I mean, he's capable. He's capable of continuing to play. So yeah, it's
yeah. Hopefully he can change his mind. You know what? I think we all agree that we want him back for sure. All right, y'all, let's take another quick break and talk about our friends at OG's. OG's just did something that is totally going to change the game. They just launched their brand new Sleepy Edition gummy. I see what you wrote here on the ad copy, Max, but I'm not going to read it.
No, don't deprive the people of that.
I know it's in red, but I'm not going to read it. But yeah, you guys can now buy the Sleepy Time OG's now. And that can flavor your dreams. It has a 2-to-1 THC to CBN ratio, so it's amazing to go to sleep, pop it in, get a great night of sleep before doing your thing the next day. And the Sleep Edition gummy comes in the new aqua berry flavor. So we highly recommend that you check out OG's online at ogsbrands.com and on Instagram at OG's. And you can also find their products at your local dispensary. And remember, you must be 21 years or older to purchase.
We're finally getting to the time of year where we can actually sleep.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, a lot of stuff. The soccer calendar in America is a little odd. So, I mean, at least you get the holidays off, at least for a little bit. So, all right. Another news, y'all. Bobby Dulle. I know we've seen him in the chat plenty of times.
Oh no, you brought the name up now. The chat is going to...
It's great.
Here they go.
All right, Owen. So yeah, Bobby Dulle puts out a statement, basically letting people know what's going on behind the scenes regarding the stadium and some other stuff. So can you kind of run us down through what's in that statement?
Yes, the update is there's no update.
There you go.
More than anything, the key thing here is that it's perhaps a positive in some ways, and it's communication. And people were complaining there wasn't communication. The positive here is there is communication. They are actively telling people, look, this is the situation. They are actively telling people, we have changed the rules slightly over the season ticket renewals. And we're not just saying this over Twitter. We're putting it in an email now. So everyone has it. They know it's accessible to them. And people know, okay, if I want to wait and see until they confirm what the stadium situation is going to be, then I can do so. And I'm not going to be penalized for not paying up now. Because, of course, the original renewal date was, I believe, this weekend. You had to do that. But look, the downside to it, of course, is that it's October. Season starts in March. You're going to want to be training before that. You'll have preseason in Feb, possibly the end of Jan even sometimes. You've got to be getting a move on. This can't wait forever. I can't remember I believe it's November. I think this team technically has a month in theory to show that they've got a year's lease available under the professional league standards that US Soccer set out. Look, we also know that the professional league standards are in many ways a bit of a joke. That was done to death no small bit by the Yates report, which pointed out that they just kind of give waivers for everything. You don't really have to show cause, you just get a waiver. But the most recently published ones on US Soccer's website do show that you've got to have a year-long lease set out in advance. And I think that date is in November, if I remember correctly. So they've just got to get a move on, really. It's not great to have this cloud hanging over you. And it's not great in terms of, look, you're about to start having to try recruiting players. Yeah. Where are we going to play? Well, I don't know.
So just hang out in Phoenix. Go Scottsdale.
No plans, just vibes.
Max, what are your thoughts on this situation, man? As a player, as a fan, like, what do you make of all this stuff?
Yeah. First off, I love how you say as a player. So flattered.
Player.
Sunday League player.
Thank you. That's a
Sunday League superstars.
That's a Golden Boot Simpson 2 seasons ago to you. Thank you. Anyway,
what division was that in?
Anyway, moving on. It was Ramon's division. That's all I'll say. So I mean, I would say I don't understand the timing of it. Why miss out on ticket renewals, on new fans coming in by waiting to drop this statement so late? Like, I understand Twitter lives in a vacuum and not everyone saw the interaction that kind of got generated from Bobby coming on the pod a month plus ago. But like, why wait until the date, that the weekend that tickets were going to like not auto renew? Like, that doesn't make business sense to me. You literally lose out on a lot of fans who are like, okay, well, I'm not going to pay this high rate, I'm out of here. Like, it just doesn't make sense. I guess better late than never, like, for sure, but it wasn't very complicated of a release. Just do it sooner. In terms of everything you're saying, Owen, about the actual situation, yeah, we're kind of getting to that point where have this conversation, but then, I don't know, it kind of behooves you as a club, as shitty as it is, to not say as much, because then people are like, oh, well, you're talking about this and that, but now we don't know where we're going to play. It's a really, really slippery slope that the teams put them in. So I don't know. I would love to hear some great answers of where the team can play. My personal thought, I know you like playing on Baseball Diamond, something in Chase Field. If not, Reach 11 has very nice complexes. It's a little north, but
wouldn't be the first time. Wouldn't be the first time the Valley's USL team has found itself playing at Reach 11, but I don't see that one happening somehow. Don't quite see that one happening somehow. No. Look, I think the thing that's worth noting here again, right? The uncertainty, as D Gully is saying here in the chat, by the way, is amateurish. Yes, I understand. I agree. I do agree with that. There's at least a bit of an improvement in the fact that it's being communicated. Because again, the last time, the fact that this even came out, there'd been all the whisper, there'd been all the rumor about it. I think the first time we actually got an actual on the record, yeah, we're not actually sure now properly if we're going to stay here after the season ticket renewals were announced, was when he came on this podcast.
Yeah.
It wasn't put out there when they started trying to get season ticket renewals. It came out because we asked him.
Doesn't make sense. Yeah.
And so at least there's a little bit of an improvement. There's a little bit of forthcomingness, let's say, with the information now that wasn't there before. But again, they've got to get this sorted. This can't keep hanging over you. Right? People are going to be leaving Wild Horse Pass on Saturday not knowing if they're ever going to go back there. That's not good. That's not good.
They're in a very reactive situation, and every opportunity you have to be proactive, get the message out there, control the narrative, you have to take it. And I mean, this was an opportunity to do so. You're running out of those chances. And as it ticks closer to November into the new year, dude, you are in between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, it's not a good look. Amateurish is one way to put it for sure, but it's just, I think it's just it's something that's been happening with the organization the entire season. If I'm the governing board and I'm seeing this, I'm asking questions. I'm like, why? What's going on? The fan experience is not well. You know, the fans are obviously not renewing their tickets. We don't know when where we're gonna play. You know, the product on the field is not up to the standards of Phoenix Rising. I'm asking a lot of questions now.
Oh yeah.
You know, the Rick Shantz left, Bobby Dooley's still there, and these things continue to happen. So it's time to ask questions now. And this is the most frustrated I've been the entire season, because at this point, like you're saying, Owen, it's about to be November. Season starts in March. You got to start recruiting these players right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not something that you can wait until maybe, hey, let's wait till the new year. No, it has to happen now. Players are seeing this stuff going on social media. It's just not a good look. You need these fans, you need these players to make it as fun as it once was, and you know, make it as put it as how the brand needs to be. You know, like, this is not something that Phoenix Rising is or should be, and it needs to be fixed right away. There's a reason why everybody's complaining.
And that's the problem, right? Because we're seeing an on-field, there's a process. We're seeing that Juan Guerra's come in. He's trying to change things up. He's got an identity, at least, that he wants to instill. And there's space for hope going into this off-season that, okay, he's going off. He's going to recruit these players. He's going to turn this into his squad. And then next season, we're going to see improvement over what happened this year. But you can't take that step back and just take the deep breath and say, okay, things are getting better, because instead you have got that big cloud hanging over you. And yeah, it's bad. It's bad to be at this point. Other teams in the league, I know they do it, but Phoenix Rising has historically now held itself to a higher standard, and it needs to hold itself to a higher standard here.
Yep, exactly. Bonnie said it's an extra hour drive round trip to Wild Horse Pass for me. I really don't want them to move again. You know, yeah, it's not good. It's a long trip for me too. it's not the funnest drive all the way out there, and I think a lot of fans feel the same way as well. So we talked about this before, where I felt that Tempe kind of Scottsdale adjacent area was really good. It worked out for everybody. I heard someone say that even the Veterans Coliseum, if they ever like a stadium option became available, would be where the State Fair is, would be an option. I don't think that would be feasible, but you know, it's an interesting idea, I'd say. But Max, Wild Horse Pass, is that something that you enjoy the location, or would you like it go back to its original, maybe in Tempe, Scottsdale?
I mean, I would say for the Coliseum, the circus only comes around a couple times a year. We don't want it there every Saturday. No, I mean, It's just interesting how when you hire Juan Guerra, you signal patience, you signal this is the new era. And to Owen's point, it gives you that hope. And then to have this position, it's the exact opposite of that. There isn't a lack of clarity. There isn't a lack of direction. I mean, I think fans, I understand they have their gripes with Wild Horse Pass, and like, all fair, totally get it. I think they would rather, I mean, I do not want to speak for the fans, but if I'm trying to put myself in, you know, season ticket holder shoes, they'd probably want at least a clarity either one way or another of, this is where we're playing, this is where the option is, you know, and have a bit more transparency. But I get from the club standpoint, you can't really do that, because if you can't, it's very hard to backtrack. It's much easier to stay quiet and not do anything. And whether fans like it or not, that's just kind of the position that they're in. It's just an ugly situation, truthfully, where you just can't release the information until you know more. And I'm curious, the thing that makes me very curious is how far along conversations are one way or another, and if it's all just getting close to the chest, or if it's really like, no, we're SOL, we don't know what's going on. Like, that's the scary part, is you can't, again, I go back to, you got to control the narrative. And if you don't control the narrative, it's people like, you know, us and other fans who are controlling it for you.
And that's the problem. It's hard to negotiate in public, but it's hard to negotiate in private when it's something so core to your club's identity, and you have a pack of fans that need answers, especially when you're going to ask them to commit money and things like that season ticket money. When that season ticket money comes in early doors, that helps. That helps with recruitment. That helps give you an idea for budgeting for the year, because you know you've got a fixed amount of money is coming in at least. When you don't have that early doors, it's hard to budget, because you really don't know what the crowd's going to be.
For sure. And also, like, from a partner standpoint, like, this is most of the time, the off season is when the renewals are happening and when you're looking to bring in new business. And it's not everything is tied to like signage or what's happening at the stadium, but it sure makes it a lot more attractive to the partners you're talking to, where it's, yeah, we know where we're going to play next season. We have a firm grasp of what next season looks like. When you don't have that, that's a really tough ask for people who are looking to spend tens, hundreds, thousands of dollars with you.
Yeah, imagine hitting up a company and saying, "Oh, by the way, do you want to sponsor us?" "Oh, cool. I didn't know you had a team here. Where do you play?" Like it just gets things off on a bad note from the start, doesn't it? I mean,
yeah, not a good look. Not a good look for sure. All right,
speaking of not good looks,
you want to? Yeah, we can jump right into it. Yeah, it's not a good look right now with what's going on with the Tampa Bay Rowdies and the USL. It's an incident happening a few weeks ago, or a couple weeks ago, I mean, and the USL issued a ban or a suspension, I mean, to one of the players from Tampa Bay for some racially discriminatory behavior that was said to in a match between Monterey Bay and Tampa Bay. So, Owen, fill us in on what's going on here. Tampa Bay's complaining that the 12th match suspension is a little much. What are your thoughts on this?
So Tampa's going further than complaining that the 12-game suspension is a little much, right? Here's what we know happened, at least. People from Monterey Bay were very, very upset at the end of the game. At least from their perspective, Sekou Kone was racially abused in some way. The implication is it was gestures of some variety. Again, the exact details have not yet come out in full. The league investigated. Monterey Bay ended up not wanting to play their game last weekend while this was ongoing. And at the end of the day, then the league turned around yesterday, pretty late at night, actually. It was 9 o'clock Eastern, I think. Roughly, they put the statement out, which is classic USL in a lot of ways, and said the investigation was complete. They'd found that he'd violated the policy and therefore was suspended for 12 games. Tampa's response was they were appealing, and there was a variety of things they had in there. They said it was a rushed investigation. They weren't given the full report. But at the same time, not only were they not given the full report, but there was no video or audio evidence, which personally, to me, those things contradict each other. You either don't know because you haven't got the full report, or you've got the report. Like it's these things contradict each other. But besides that, there was complaints about the length of the suspension. Like it's unprecedented for this kind of thing. Yeah, it is. But that was a conversation that happened back in 2020 when you had a variety of incidents at the end of the year. You had Junior Fleming suspended for 6 games, of course. That's the one we all know about here in Phoenix. You had Omar Ontiveros suspended after a racial incident the week before, 6 games as well. And the conversation then was people thought it was too light. And that's what was communicated to the league. The league said, okay, we're going to review this. Now we're having a test of that. And now it appears that 12 is where they're coming in at. So, look, it's hard because we don't have all the evidence. At the same time, what I'll say is this. It's not a good look for Tampa to be talking about intent at this point for 2 reasons. Number one, intent really doesn't matter for this. I'm sorry. When we deal with an offense in football, we talk about what happened, not what a person intended to do. In this case, were the gestures that were made offensive, insulting, or abusive? And that can't be, did he mean them to be? It's would another person, a reasonable person watching it, believe that those gestures are offensive, insulting, or abusive? And so just being, oh, it's a big misunderstanding, is, quite frankly, not a good kind of approach to take on this anyway, I think, from a moral standpoint, to just be like, oh, no, you were just mistaken. But also doesn't really bear fruit in actually looking at, under the laws of the game, he committed an offense. Beyond that, though, I feel as though we don't know all the details, of course. We don't know what information in full the league had. But if he's found guilty and it's a 12-game suspension, I mean, it's an improvement to see it move to 12 from 6. I'll say that much. Just in general, for incidents of this nature, it shows a much more serious attitude from a league that doesn't suspend people for long periods of time.
Max, your thoughts?
I mean, not much there. The only thing I can think of is you always wonder what gets around to players and how information or rumors kind of spread from team to team. And the thing I can think of is the player in question from Monterrey who was like racially abused is like, this is not an isolated incident. It happened the game before. And that doesn't mean that the punishment to me necessarily should be more or less. Like, to me, it's kind of isolated. But when you think about it from a player standpoint, it goes back to the intent of, you've got to know, like I'm sure as a player, you hear that. And so for Tampa Bay to try to think, oh, well, we're arguing intent. I mean, that just adds on to it that you've got to hear that comes through. And like, it's just a double down bad look of, oh, we're trying to argue to intent. Yeah, but that player's been, isolated in incidents for now 2 games in a row. So good luck with that one. It's just not great.
The statement as a whole, I know I talked a little bit more about it earlier, but if you could almost boil it down to, he didn't do it, but if he did, 12 games is too much. Yeah. But even though he did, he didn't mean it. And the statement, that's why it was bizarre to me. There was an acceptance there that he was doing some kind of gesture, but they're just saying, oh, it was about the goal that he scored. He didn't mean it to be interpreted as something, right? Well, that's on you. That's on you to not do something that clearly people, because the Monterrey players were mad about this.
It was a heated game.
Mad about this. It was a heated game. This happened after the end of the game, but this incident, particularly, from what I gather, really, really sent the temperature through the roof in that Monterrey Bay camp. That's why they took the action they did over the weekend.
Yeah,
and so.
And I applaud Monterrey for taking that stand, for standing behind their player, because that player has been subject to abuse. And I believe he was the one that was getting abuse as well after the Phoenix Rising game where he missed the penalty. And so, yeah, I applaud Monterrey for standing, behind their plan and threatening, hey, we're just not going to play, because if the league doesn't do anything about this, it's going to continue to happen. And it's not right for this player. Now, on the Tampa Bay side, we've seen here in Phoenix what happens when you put out a statement without having the entire evidence or all the information. We've seen it with the Phoenix Suns. We saw it with the Robert Sarver situation, where all those reports started coming out. They quickly put out a statement, and that's all those statements that they put out were proved wrong later on. And so you got to be careful if you're Tampa Bay before he's putting out these sort of statements, because it can come and bite you in the butt, because it's stuff that this is like really sensitive stuff. It's not something that you can just play around and say, well, our coach said he didn't say it, so he didn't say it. Like, no, like, this is something that you need to accept responsibility on. And if the player did as well, then you need to take some measures to resolve it.
I'm also going to say, I think in this case, that it's something that a lot of people misinterpret when they go on social media and seem to think that the idea of innocent until proven guilty applies to everyone is entitled to all of the evidence all of the time, and we all have to individually judge. Personally, I don't know if I can go outside and tell the sun's in the sky, because I don't know what it is. I just see a bright ball. Like, no, there's a level of, you have to trust people who are more qualified to an extent, and yes, you have to hold them accountable as well, but it's not. There's a balance here, right? I mean, people are also going out throwing around the earlier comments that apparently the racial comments directed at Sekou Kane on social media after the game against Phoenix Rising. It's being used as though it's, oh, look, he's made claims before. Oh, right. Does he have to come out and prove that to you now? No, he doesn't. No. And I'm at a loss with all of this. It feels as though Tampa Bay are really circling the wagons in a way, as a club at least, and the fan base are divided on this. I will say there are a lot of people there who are really uncomfortable with the nature of the allegation, that want this to be handled properly by the league and come to a real conclusion so that they can get a little bit of closure almost. But it's not good. It's a tough one to come out and defend, because at the end of the day, again, look, you'd have to presume, and I don't know this for sure. Again, we don't have the report. The league have something beyond just Monterrey Bay's players saying what they said. You have to assume something exists, because this isn't the first time that we've had an allegation of discriminatory actions. since the Junior Flemings incident. Jason Johnson was accused when he was with Austin, I believe, and they were playing Real Monarchs, of using a slur. And the league ultimately said that they didn't have enough evidence to take action in that case. To me, since they've shown that in the past they don't just take people on their word, I'd be a little bit shocked if they were just taking people on their word this time. But hey, who knows? It's USL. it's league
Never know.
sometimes.
Never know with this league.
It's not Nisa, but it's not a million miles away.
Yeah. We'll keep you updated on what happens with this situation. Certainly want to keep an eye on it. You know, it's not a good look overall. So we want to make sure this gets addressed properly. All right, y'all. Let's take another quick break. Talk about our friends at DraftKings. If you guys haven't downloaded the DraftKings Sportsbook app, make sure to do that now. New customers can bet just $5 on any NFL team to win and get $200 in free bets if they do. And if that's not enough, everyone can boost their winnings with DraftKings stepped up same game parlays. Right now, for every leg that you add, you can boost your winnings up to 100%. And with payouts bigger than ever, why bet on football with anyone else? And to make things even sweeter, you can throw down on stepped up same game parlays once per game day all season long. So it's simple, guys. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, use promo code PHNX. That's promo code PHNX on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply, and make sure to check out the show notes for more details.
You know what? Just on that topic, by the way, speaking of DraftKings, boys, come on, let's get some Champions League picks for tomorrow. Who are you taking? Who are you betting on?
Well,
so that the people watching know not to bet on them.
I was gonna say I'm actually gonna put out I'm gonna put out on Twitter a little parlay with all of the matches tomorrow. So yes, you can feel free to look at the tweet and then disregard everything completely.
Okay, you know what? We're gonna build it right now, just quickly. Let's just talk.
Now?
So Atletico Madrid or Club Bruges? You can pick draw as well, of course.
Yeah. Give me draw. When in doubt, give me a draw. Especially Atletico.
He's going with the draw.
Bunches.
Yeah,
Napoli against Ajax.
Oh man,
Ooh.
I'm gonna take Napoli on that one. They're doing really well this season.
Napoli at home. Okay. Plzen against Bayern Munich.
At home.
It's not in Munich.
It's Bayern, of course.
It's going with Bayern.
Nah, give me the draw.
You're taking the draw, man.
Draw. Okay.
Man, I saw Maccabi Haifa win 2-0 to Juventus. And yes, Juventus is imploding. It's a different story. Bayern, little rattled after a last-second draw against Dortmund in the Der Klassiker. They're playing away from home. I've seen crazier things. I've seen it.
All right. Barcelona against Inter Milan.
Oh, man. I'll give it to Barca.
Yeah, I hate to say it. Give me Barca.
Yeah, I guess.
Rangers against Liverpool.
Liverpool's not playing well at all, but I don't think Rangers has what it takes right now to get by them. Sorry, Greg Hurst.
Give me the draw.
You going for the draw?
Oh, yeah.
We're getting there quickly. Will Harry Kane's penalty merchant FC
it's Tottenham at home. Easy win. Double down on that one.
Going for Spurs. Okay. Leverkusen against Porto. These are getting tougher at the end.
I know.
These are the ones that I usually go draw, but I'll take.
And Leverkusen Porto is more or less a toss up. Not exactly, but yeah. Give me Porto on that one.
You're going for Porto, and then one more game left just to see what these odds end up looking like.
Of course.
Sporting Lisbon against Marseille.
That's also kind of a toss up. Marseille's kind of give me Lisbon in that one.
You're gonna take Sporting Lisbon.
Yes, I am.
All right. Do you want to hear what these odds come out at?
Like 50,000.
No.
No. It's more than that.
Really?
Plus.
Yeah.
601,719. So
it's tomorrow.
If you bet $10 on that game, you would win over 60 grand.
Now, see, if you want to go with my picks, a little bit higher odds, that's plus 2,168,524. You put down $10, you win 216,000 plus.
Nice.
Yeah, a little cash.
Interesting.
Hey, man, crazier things have happened.
Yeah. It was fun. It's fun. Yeah, Champions League is always fun to bet on. So make sure to keep, if you're using the draft, make sure to
Bet Man U too in the Champions League. Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That was a
Yeah, make sure remember as well our catchphrase on this show. If you bet $100 on Man United to win the Premier League, you can lose $100.
And they played pretty well against Everton. Everton was feisty.
Let's just clip that. We'll clip that exact sentence, and that's all we need. They played pretty well against Everton. Fantastic. Yep.
They're getting better, man. Gotta believe. All right, y'all. Before we wrap up, I do want you guys to make it out to this game, the last game of the season this weekend at Wild Horse Pass. Have a chance to hang out with us. We'll see if we can do some fun stuff during the game. To thank you, fans, for being with us the entire season. I know it's been a long season. It went by very quickly. And I know it didn't end, or it's not going to end with the playoffs, but it's been a wild and fun ride, hanging out with Owain and Max here. So if you guys can make it to the game, I suggest you guys download the Game Time app, use the link that's in the show notes, use that link to purchase your tickets for this weekend's game and hang out. It's going to be a fun time this weekend. And again, we can send off Luis Manuel Seijas and congratulate him on a great career. And you guys can score up to 60% off on last minute tickets if you're a procrastinator like me, on other tickets such as concerts, sporting events, not just Phoenix Rising. But since it is the last game of the season, I encourage you to click on the link on the show notes and download the Game Time app to purchase your tickets. All right, y'all. That's it for tonight. Great job, everybody. Chat, you guys have been awesome as always. We will be back on Thursday. It's gonna be a fun time as well. All right, y'all. That is it from us here at PHNX Rising. I hope you have a great rest of your night. Until Thursday, take care. See you then.